Okay, so let's talk about it. Your writing habits generally are not the problem, but your lack of structure usually is. Most writers think that they're the problem. They think that they lack discipline, they lack focus, they lack talent, and they waste a whole lot of time beating themselves up over these constant habits that they tend to describe. However, today I want to talk about why so many capable writers feel stuck and why the answer usually has absolutely nothing to do with trying harder or trying to beat yourself up for habits you haven't developed yet. Um, but first, before we go into that, my name is Halana Black. I've been a writer for the last 10 years. And since 2018, I actually took my writing business overseas with me. And I've been gallivanting around the world ever since. I started off in Thailand. I've been to places like Cambodia, Turkey, Rwanda, and now I am in Mexico sharing my writing tips with you. I help women who are interested in learning how to be able to use publishing to be able to grow, their business, to be able to grow themselves, to be able to grow their wealth. So let's talk about it. Why do writers blame themselves? What are the habits that they're blaming for, first of all? Writers starting and stopping their work. This is very popular. You start a project, you put it down, and pick it up until it's time for you to be able to pick it back up again. And this could be in anything. This happens with people when they want to say that, I'm going to write a book. You start it, you put a few ideas down and you don't get back to it until something happens and you want to get back to writing the book again. Could be, days later, weeks later, months later, sometimes years later. Abandoned drafts, same thing. You write a draft of a book, you put it down, you forget about it. You go through cycles of enthusiasm, cycles of burnout. Some days you feel high, you sort of fly by the seat of your pants, and you when you're feeling enthusiastic about the work, you're unstoppable. And then you reach a season of burnout, you put all those writing projects to the side because you just can't deal with it. You don't have the energy, you're feeling like you don't have time, and so you put your writing down to the side. And then you go through this sort of internal process and thinking of, God, I should be further along than this. I should have finished writing this book, last year. Last year was my goal to be able to finish writing my book. 2 years ago, I said that I wanted to be able to start writing for magazines. I've always wanted to see my name in the New York Times, and you're not closer to getting it done. But let me tell you, it's not so much the habits that you have that are the problem, it's really the structure. You don't have any structure to be able to create the writing life that you want. So when there is no structure, your mind sort of turns inward and it starts to blame you, yourself, as the writer. That's how our minds work. And this is really with anything. When you don't have a structure in place to help you think about what it is that you want to write about, everything sort of gets in the way. So here's what structure actually means for you as a writer. Structure doesn't mean, structure isn't rigidity. It's really support. And I used to fall into this category of thinking about, structure as being too stringent, as being too tight. It sort of takes away from your creativity. When structure is really meant to be able to support your goals, to support who it is that you want to be, right? So structure is really, it looks like clarity about what it is that you're working on. That's number one. When you're writing down your writing goals, you want to have clarity about what that goal is about. Otherwise, you just sort of, you're just doing stuff. You're just doing stuff. Number two, you have to understand where your work is headed. Are you, what type of a book? What type of a book are you writing here? If you say that you want to be published, are where is the best places for you to be pitching magazines when you're doing the pitching of the magazine process? Do you have a process for moving your ideas forward? Or are you coming back to the same idea over and over and over and over again? Are your ideas growing as you grow? Or do you keep going back to I wanted to write that thing, 3 years ago, but 3 years ago you were a different person. So how has that idea that you said you wanted to write about 3 years ago, how has that idea grown with you? And knowing how your writing fits into your life. I myself, I'm a single person who travels. However, I also have friends who have they are responsible to other people. They may be married, some of them have children, and so their time doesn't look like what it does for me. So they need a little bit more structure, and what people will often do is they will think, well, just because I don't have the type of time that I had when I was single, that means that I somehow can't have a writing life, and that's not true. You just need to be able to decide what it is that you want it to look like. The same way you fit everything else into your life, you can fit your writing life into. So structure is a thing that holds your work, so that you as a writer don't have to. You create the, you create, it's like building a house. You don't come in with paint and you just start, painting, a cabinet if you don't paint your kitchen cabinets if your kitchen cabinets don't have a wall to be able to hang it up against, right? You need to be able to build a good foundation of the house so that the house doesn't fall apart. And that's what happens with a lot of people. We don't have the structural foundation for us to be able to have a writing life that actually looks like the way we want it to be able to look like. So how does lack of structure actually show up? Lack of structure for a lot of people looks like you write a lot of stuff. You feel like you write down stuff. Maybe you are you like to journal a lot. So you journal a lot, but you're not really publishing anything, or you're jotting down ideas. You got notes all over the place. Maybe you've got a lot of Post-it notes on the wall. For a lot of these ideas, you're thinking about it. You're generating the stuff in your head, but it's not actually coming out to any sort of a finished work that you can actually be proud of. What else? It could be. It could look like waiting for confidence before you actually share anything. Waiting for confidence before you actually share anything. What does that look like? Waiting for confidence before you actually share anything. So you know that you have stuff that you want to be able to write, but then you might spend a lot of time looking at other people who are writing about the thing that you want to be able to write, and then you start saying, well, my idea isn't as good as this person, or this person got to the idea before I did, so now I don't really have anything to be able to say about this particular topic because you feel like this other person has already done it. When the truth is that everybody has their own personal stories, and you always have something that's slightly different. Your particular life story might be different from the other person who wrote about the same topic, and so there's always space for you to be able to share what it is that you wanted to say. What else? It looks like bouncing between projects. So you start off excited about one project, you get bored with it, you put it down, and then you're off to something else. You never really sat down and made a full decision about the thing that you wanted to be able to write about. So now you're just bouncing between stuff and nothing ever really gets done. And then you also avoid pitching because it feels overwhelming, and that's because you don't have a process. And you know, I've personally have done this, where you sort of think that you've done more pitching than you actually have, but when you actually look at the numbers, it doesn't relate, it doesn't connect. You actually look at the numbers of how many pitches you've sent out versus what it is that you thought that you did at the end of the year or the end of the month, or however you want to look at it. And maybe you haven't gotten as many yeses as you wanted to, but the truth is, the more pitches that you actually put out for a magazine, the more pitches that you put out, the more yeses you have an opportunity to be able to get. And so if you avoid pitching, that means that you are not giving yourself as many opportunities as possible to be able to get the yes in the first place. So without structure, every decision always feels really personal. It feels really heavy for everybody. So you need the structure so that we can push the emotion to the side. Here's why structure changes everything. Structure actually helps you to create momentum. So when I'm in a pitching process, and I know that, okay, I have decided that I am going to send out minimum 5 pitches a week. That's, you know, generally speaking, if I'm working 5 days a week, I'm sending out 1 pitch a day, 1 pitch per work day. And once I have committed to that, I create a structure around what that particular momentum is going to look like. So for me, I like to be able to pitch in the earlier part of the day, because that is when I have the most energy. If I waited until late at night to be able to do my pitching work, it may or may not happen depending on what my energy is looking like. But there's also many structures within the goal. It's not like I just set up the goal, but there's a structure on the process of being able to pitch. I have to do research. I have to know what magazine I'm pitching this idea to, all sorts of things. So my structure that I have created for myself ensures that I have this momentum in pitching, and once that momentum gets going, it's really difficult for me to stop because I just sort of do it automatically, right? Structure also helps to reduce self-doubt. I just said a few minutes ago, when you know that you are, I depend on the structure in my business to be able to do the work for me. So I don't have time to sit and lament about who was writing about what and who did the work better. Because I'm so involved in meeting the goals of the structure that I have set up for my own writing business, for my own pitches and things that I want to be able to set up, that I don't even have time to think about what, you know, writers A, B, and C are doing down the road. I don't even have to think about it. So all of that self-doubt kind of takes a back seat. Doesn't mean that it disappears completely. It's just that it's just not top of mind anymore, because I have the structure that will help me put my feelings to the side. Structure also makes pitching feel manageable. If I know that I have to do my 1 pitch a day, then the 1 pitch is going to feel, you know, it feels like I can approach it with, you know, some sort of a level of feeling like I can do it. When you don't have structure and you feel like you're falling behind, that's when people are like, oh, I gotta send out 4 pitches today because I didn't do the last few days. I gotta do the 4 pitches today or else I'm gonna lose out. And when you look at it that way, it becomes unmanageable, because you're always in a race to be able to catch up. If you stick to your structure, you'll always feel like you have something manageable on your hands. Structure also helps writers to just stop circling around. Sometimes people get into this habit where they're circling around the same idea a few times, and they're just sort of, they're not getting past this repeating thought that they have. I have an idea, and you keep going circling around what the idea is, and you're like, oh, this idea is so great. And then when you actually go to sit down and you want to write about it, you realize that you haven't gotten as far with the idea as you may have thought. And then that's when the self-doubt starts to pop in. You're like, well, maybe I'm not as good as the others. It's not that. It's just that you haven't spent as much time with the idea as you have thought. So rather than getting into a habit of just circling around the idea, getting into the habit of actually writing down and developing that idea, that's something that you need to do. So once writers have structure, you can stop asking questions like, am I good enough? And start asking, okay, now that I've done that, what's the next step? Which is a really powerful way to sort of reframe that for yourself. So if this is interesting to you, if you want to know more about pitching magazines, I have actually put together 5, what is it called? It's called 5 Successful Magazine Pitches that you can download for free. When I started writing for magazines, it was really helpful for me to be able to see other people's pitches, just to be able to sort of get an idea of what an actual pitch looks like, just to sort of demystify what the process is. And so that's what I have done. If you go to the description box and you just click on the link that's in there that says 5 Successful Magazine Pitches, you'll be able to see that I have put this document together for you so that you can see the pitches that I have already sent out. And what I have done is, these pitches are really short. They're just, at least my pitches are. They tend to be a couple of paragraphs. And then underneath that, I've also shared a link to the actual magazine article, whether it appeared in an actual print publication or it appeared online. So you can have that for yourself. You'll be able to see that for yourself, and then you don't have to think about it anymore, about what does a pitch look like from start to publishing, hitting the publish button. So if writing feels hard right now, that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It usually just means that you need more support around the work. And that's what this channel is about. And so I invite you to stay if you would like to. You can hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you got all the way here to the end. You can tell me about where you are in your writing life. I'd love to know more about you. And don't forget to download the free gift. The link is in the bio, the 5 Successful Magazine Pitches. And so I will see you in the next video. Peace.